Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we have the Silverado kind of pulled in behind us, and what we'll be doing today is basically fixing two problems. One is, you guys can see this step for the Bison Bumper. You guys can see the plastic is really wiggly. It's not supposed to be like that. There's supposed to be a reinforcement back there. And the second thing is, we'll be replacing these Buick fog lights with a aftermarket fog light from Baja Designs. So you guys can see we've got just a couple parts here, nothing too crazy, but I ordered a pair of S1 lights from Baja Designs. So as you guys can see, this is an S1 pair, so it's two of them. Part number is 387805, and the part number for the GM brackets ends in 668. And then you guys can see this same part number right here ends in 669. Those are going to be the Bison specific for the Chevrolet, not the GMC, and those should resolve the slop issue that we have with running the GMC brackets on a Chevrolet. So this Bison Bumper originally came off of a AT4X, and I was not aware there was a difference between the Chevrolet and the GMC. So like, yeah, 2 years later we're finally resolving this, and the reason it took us that long is because the GM parts diagrams never updated. I think the bumpers came out in like 23, something like that. Is now almost 2026, and finally I found the part number for these, and these actually were not easy to find. I had to kind of guess on it, but yeah, we're able to get that resolved. And then to make these fog lights work with the Bison Bumper, we basically bought these adapter brackets from, I think it was like SSE or something like that. They do sell just the brackets for like $75, something like that. I think it's Silverado Sierra Enthusiast Group. So that's the website that sold that. And actually, I'll include a picture here. You also see it says Colorado and Canyon. So I suspect GM went really cheap with the AEV parts on both the Colorado, the Canyon, the Silverado, and the Sierra, but all using the same Buick part number for the fog lights. So that's why I think we're able to use these brackets for the S1 specific, those fog lights, on all four of those trucks. So a little bit of insider information. I wouldn't have known about this if they hadn't marked the SSE brackets, also the Colorado and Canyon Enthusiast Group. So yeah, that's pretty much it. These things are not all that complex. It's just a real little fog light from Baja Designs. You guys can see the size is about the same as the factory one, but obviously with this being a set from Baja Designs, this should be a lot better than factory. And also, since we converted our factory bumper harness like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, we should be able to do a plug and play install on these. I think these will plug right in to the Buick fog lights that are in there. Now this kit does have a auxiliary power switch, so you guys can see that harness right there. But I looked at the various companies selling this style bracket, and they all just had a little adapter going from the factory light wiring to this. So that's what we're gonna try. If this doesn't work out, we'll have that aftermarket wire harness we could try to figure out. But for now, I'm just gonna go ahead, try to plug these in. The one thing I don't have is any hardware, which is a little weird because, you know, these brackets didn't come with any. Hopefully this hardware will bolt this light to the brackets from the Silverado Sierra Group. So we're going to start our mod by removing this release handle for our winch down here from come up. This handle has to come off so we can pull off the center part, which sits on top of the outside parts. Then the outside parts literally sit right on top of the fog light. So I think we should have plenty of room just to reach down in there and grab everything. So we have a pretty big pile of parts here on the ground, with bumper parts and whatnot. And honestly, once you get one of these kind of just undone and pulled up, the whole thing kind of just comes apart. So we got center grill, the outer grill. We also removed the footsteps that plug into right there. So yeah, we should have plenty of room from the top to get access to all the bolts and everything that we're going to need to get these off. All right guys, you can see we've already gone ahead and removed the upper shield, basically that step part that we're going to be replacing. So we've ripped out the GMC part. That was a T15 to get all 4 bolts of the inner shield off. And then for this front part, there's 2 clips right here, and then that just came off with this trim removal tool. And then on the inside of the bumper, you basically have this little retaining clip. You guys can see this little prong right here. You basically need to squeeze that with, I just used this plastic removal tool, squeezed that down, and I got it tight enough to where I was able to pull up on it, and that came up. That released this part right here, and that allowed us to get access to the fog light. So it looks like this fog light bracket just has a couple bolts holding it in. Again, this T15 right here from the front, we'll get that. And then if you guys can see my finger right here, there's a third bolt right here that you're gonna have to pull out. So there's two in the front, one in the back, and I think this fog light should come right out. All right, guys, this is actually like the third time I have taken this apart, and what we're running into is basically the fog light bracket that was sent to us was actually hitting the bumper. You guys can see that spot right there. That's basically, you got two pieces of metal that are fighting for the same space. I'm not opposed to trimming that because, you know, that main part is going to support the fog light right there where my finger is pointing to. So that little bracket will support that. I'm not opposed to trimming the bumper for this little, you know, that little bit. Because right now it's not being used anyway, and it won't be used with the future fog light either. But I really kind of want to get a set of instructions. But we have learned a couple things. And that first lesson, I think, is pretty much we're going to have to trim the bumper just a little bit, like a little half circle here, basically where this bolt hole goes. And the second thing is the two harnesses here are not going to match. This plug is not the same as this one. This one is a generic weather pack. This one is more of like an H9 or H1, H5. I don't know my fog light numbers, but I think it's like an H9. It's H something fog light. And that won't be a bigger deal. We basically can cut that plug off. I'll depin it, then cut it right at the pins. And then Baja Designs actually gives you the male end that we need, and then inside of there you guys can see the weather pack seal and then the weather pack connection. So not a bigger deal there. All right, guys, I have put the truck back together. You can see everything is back in. Well, to add further salt to that wound, yeah, those are the new parts from Chevrolet, and well, guess what, they don't fit unless you take the grill out. And so yeah, that's a solid whole day right there that I don't have. I might be able to get to this in a couple days, but right now I don't have the time for it. All right, guys, I have jumped ahead, and you guys can see we have the factory fog light over here, and over here you can see we have the Baja Designs light. Now that did fit without any major issue. We did have to trim both the bracket and the bumper, so there is a little bit of cutting that we're gonna have to do. I just used a Dremel with like a 1-inch cutting disc and cut it without any major issue. But basically inside of the bumper there is an unused tab that's not used by any of the mounting hardware that comes with the stock bumper. It's like I think they had a plan for a different fog light, so they had an extra tab. It's in there, it's not needed. We'll trim that off. We'll show everything you need to do. And as for the wiring, all we had to do was basically cut and strip the existing fog light harness, put in the little socket that they give you with the pins and everything with the weather pack, plug that in, and you're good to go. Alright guys, if you see the silver Sharpie marker on the inside of the bumper, that's basically the little tab that we got to trim. The way the bracket that came from the Silverados here in SSE group, yeah, it just interferes with that, so we got to trim that. And like we said, we'll have to trim the bracket a little bit as well, because this outside hole right here, there's a plastic tab that goes through here on this panel. Well, that's trying to fight for the same space, so we're going to have to cut both of these. But like I said, this inside bracket is not used for anything. And yeah, so we're just going to go ahead and trim that up real quick with a Dremel. Alright guys, you can see the aftermarket's got the darker black. That's the aftermarket fog light bracket. We have modified the bumper. You guys will probably see where I'm pointing. See that shiny metal right there? That's basically where we trim that. When I do take this out, we will show you where we did cut it. And then the last thing you need to do, you need to basically mark your bracket at the top and the bottom. You guys can see I'm marking it up with the Torx bit right here. And what that's going to do, that is going to give us plenty of clearance for the front clip, this panel right here, to snap in. And then we need it to go kind of into the bracket a little bit. So I'm going to cut the bracket, probably a good half of its length. And I'm just marking it here so that we have plenty of length to go ahead and get this thing installed. Alright guys, you can see a little bit of an outline of the cut there. Not too difficult, just follow the body lines before and after that bracket, that little tab, and you can cut that right off. All right, guys, you can see the little square that we've cut out, and yes, that is some touch-up paint. I know it looked horrible, but it was 62, and now it's dropped down to like low 40s. So I'm trying to get this stuff done as quick as I can. So we just painted this and the little piece that we trimmed on the bumper just so that this stuff doesn't rust out. Put 2-3 layers of paint on it, call it good. And yeah, so I'm gonna let this stuff dry for like 30-40 minutes. This is how I pretty much set up the passenger side, and it went in really with no major issue. The two things that we pretty much did was, you see this front screw right here, the back U-nut behind it, we actually had to swap that from the front to back because the way this comes from the factory is all those U-nuts face forward. So you have to disconnect the fog light from the back. But the problem is if you put it forward with this new bracket, it will actually hit the plastic piece, that trim piece that we showed you guys earlier. So we just put the U-nut on the back, we put the screw to the front, and that's pretty much all you're gonna have to do to get this to fit. And then the second part is the positioning of the fog lights itself. You guys can pretty much see that I just positioned that pretty much level with the back of this bracket. And then for the up and down, I pretty much just set it straight forward. So that's pretty much all we're gonna have to do. Let's go ahead and mount this back in the truck. And to do that, we basically just gotta put 2 screws here where my thumb is, these 2 U-nuts, and then another one over here. There's another J or U-nut. I forget what that's called. It's one of those 2. All right, guys, we got the bracket mounted as well as the fog light. We also just finished up the wiring. Basically, I just snipped off the aftermarket harness I had on here for the old fog lights for the Bison swap, and I just ran white to red, blue to black. That was basically my ground, so hot ground, hot ground. All right, guys, there you go. You can see the fog light turned on, headlights, everything are on, and yeah, so we have both Baja Designs fog lights working without issue. I have finished putting the front panel on. I've got the new step support put in that is way more secure than it was without that being there. So that is basically just a bunch of T15 Torx bits, and that will go under there. All right, guys, you can see we have the fog lights have been installed on both sides. Everything's good to go. So that's the Baja Designs. We have the grill put back in place. We have the supports. You guys can see this is no longer bending down like it was earlier in the video. So that's been installed. We got the middle trim part back installed. And that's pretty much the gist of it. One thing I will point out, there is a line that goes to the washer bottle for your windshield washer fluid. There's actually a dispenser here under the camera. You guys can see that right here. Well, that's supposed to clean the camera off when you hit the windshield washer fluid for the windows. Well, mine hasn't been working for a while, and I found out mine was actually pinched shut between the grill and the body. There's like a little cavity it's supposed to like sit behind. Well, mine was pinched shut, so I made sure to double check that, made sure it was good to go. So all right, guys, that is a wrap on the install for the fog lights from Baja Designs. Now, I don't think I'm the first person to put the S1 fog lights on a Bison Bumper on a 1500, but I think I'm the only person that's done it using kind of a DIY kit. Bought the brackets from one company, bought the fog lights direct from Baja Designs, and I didn't spend like $600 doing this. We only spent like $215 for the lights, and those brackets were like 75 bucks. So we got just about 300 bucks in this project. So I think there's a couple different companies selling these type of brackets. Now, I don't know which ones you're gonna have to modify, which ones you won't. But the other kits that I saw out there basically was, you know, the brackets, the lights, the install instructions, and then kind of a jumper harness so you don't have to cut your factory harness. Oh, and those kits were between like $400 and $600. So yeah, we had to kind of figure this out. We did have to trim the bumper a little bit, but you know, if we had bought this kit from SSE for $400, I think that's what their normal price is, we still would have had to cut the bracket. We still would have had to cut the bumper. So I don't know, save $100, figure it out yourself. Not a bigger deal. Plus, you guys watching this video will have a first-hand account of how to do it, showing you how the modifications that need to go, and you'll be able to replace the Buick fog lights with these S1s without any major issue. The only criticism I would have about this kit is that I did have to figure it out. You know, I did send an email over to SSE. I said, hey, do you have your set of install instructions? I am having some issues with the brackets. They kind of replied back, hey, what year and what model is the truck? I said, it's a 1500. Your website says it'll fit. And so, yeah, it's kind of crappy that, you know, I bought the brackets. You guys said it fit. I've included a screenshot of Facebook because I had saved it saying, does this fit 1500? Emailed him, and he never emailed me back. It's just kind of annoying that you buy a kit, or at least part of a kit, it's supposed to fit, and you know, you basically have no communication. With that being said, the other kits out there, I don't know if they specifically use the Baja S1. I think one's Diode Dynamics, another one is the Baja maybe. You know, you can basically do the same install for about half the amount of money, and with my information, you guys should have no major issue, you know, doing plug and play on this thing. So now, real world performance. I will include a couple pictures here of a foggy night that we just had last night. Now, unfortunately, I had all of my lights on because I could only see maybe 300 feet in front of me. But as you guys can see, it was a real foggy, dense, cloudy night. All the lights worked really well, and I didn't have any issue seeing anything. But the best shot I have is actually going to be the 360-degree camera shot, overhead shot, with one fog light being stock, one fog light being the Baja design. And you guys can see on the passenger side, that fog light is super bright compared to the dim one on the left. In regards to the wiring, if you guys are concerned about using the stock harness, I don't think we really need to be, because one, the S1 lights, they're pretty small. They're not using a ton of power. And two, the kits out there that you see, I clicked through the pictures, saw the install instructions. They all basically use the stock ZR2 bumper harness, and they don't run anything additional. Now, I'm not saying you don't need that harness from Baja Designs, because the kit that I bought came with 2 fog lights, 2 brackets, and it did come with the wire harness. Well, I just tied it into the factory fog lights, and we'll see how this works. I had a similar setup on my old 2005 Duramax 2500, and that worked just fine with the aftermarket LED fog lights. Now, like I said, these are small cubes. They're not the huge, gigantic ones that we have like on the ditch lights. So with that being said, you guys did see us pretty much cut the terminals off my harness. Well, I've actually done that twice now. One was when I swapped from the ZR2 bumper to the Bison Bumper, the factory Chevrolet pigtail was not the same between the stock ZR2 bumper and the Buick lights that are in the Bison Bumper. So I had already cut that thing once before. So cutting off another set of pins, putting another set of weather pack pins on there, not a bigger deal for me because I've already done it once. So that might be something you guys could be concerned with, but for me, I don't care. It's a wire harness, easily remedied by cutting off those weather pack pins and replacing them with whatever you want. And so yeah, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope we gave you enough instruction. We gave you some real world performance results, as well as just a good DIY of how to wire this kit up. And so yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more truck updates, we should have more LT4 updates. I need to finish the long block on that, get the blower on there, get everything else on there. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. And if you guys want to help support the channel, check out all the links down below. We're going to have some links to the Baja Designs kit. I'll give you a part number for that. The SSE website will give you a link to that. Everything else, the tools, the wire crimpers, the weather pack connectors, the weather pack tools, crimping tool, I will have include links for all that. Also, make sure to check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. We got plenty of C6 used parts on there. We've got merch, we've got stickers, t-shirts, and I happen to be wearing one of my old sweaters. We've got these for sale. And because, yeah, like I said, I think it's going to be 30 tonight. And so, yeah, if you want to stay warm in this cold winter, make sure you pick up some of the gear at the website. And that's going to be it. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.